the beauty of the social housing is, like Jason says, he's got an investor interested.
Yeah.
So I'll just explain how it works with us, really, and how we got into it. So I'd wanted to do social housing for ages, and trying to connect with housing associations is really tough, because I think the way they look at it is that all the landlords have got rubbish properties and then can't get them rented out, go, oh, do you know what? They'll be right for housing associations and we don't have to do anything. And actually, it's the other way around. Housing associations have got very specific criteria, which I'll go through at the end, but they've got very specific criteria about what you need in that property. So I think they felt that a lot of people were coming to them that were time wasting. So it's been quite hard to make that connection. Having made that connection now, we've got to the point where we've handed across all but 2 of our portfolio. So we feel it works really well for us, because even if the rent isn't quite at market rent, by the time you get into you're not paying letting agents fees and you're not covering maintenance, actually your cash flow can be a lot better.
Yeah.
So I'll come on to that. But what we did when we got handed ours over, we built up a really, really good relationship with the housing association, and they're just like, Jackie, we love your houses, they're the best we ever get. It's like, we just know as soon as we get a house from you, it's going to be absolutely fine. So we said, well, we'll start, if they were all right with it, we'll start working with landlords and trying to get them, so you admit, Jonathan, there we go. We'd start trying to get them on board. Hi, Jonathan. Oh, Camilla, gosh, it's all go. We'd try and get them on board to see if we could get more houses available for social housing, because the demand is just massive. So what the Housing Association said was, fantastic, we need lots of houses. We need houses in Leeds, Bradford and Wakefield. They are looking at going to Huddersfield, but at the moment that's still in negotiation. So they're looking at Leeds, Bradford, Wakefield, and they want to get more properties on. But what they said was, if we sat in the middle, then it makes life so much easier for them, because they're just dealing with us and they know that we will make sure that the properties coming on board are right and meet the criteria. So, hi, Jonathan. I just got started, but we've only been going 2 minutes. Same,
it's
Camilla.
fine,
hello.
guys.
Hiya. So I was just explaining how we got into social housing. So what we did then was say, right, well, we'll set up a process where we can work with landlords. We sit in the middle and we help tell the landlord what the criteria is, what the house needs to be compliant, and what the costs are involved, but how much more cash flow they can get. And then they can decide if it's for them or not. It's no hard sell. It's, are you fed up with arrears? Are you fed up with voids? You know, this is an easy option. So that's kind of how we got involved with it. So we then started talking to sourcing agents, because when people were selling a deal, they could then put the opportunity of either private rental or social housing on it and show figures for both. And that gave them more scope for selling more deals. Because, for instance, I don't know if you know Andreas Anderson. He's one of my co-mentors in Aspire. Andreas, we work quite a lot with Andreas in Leeds. Now, he does social housing with MERS at the top end, so like 4 or 5 beds. But the figures didn't work for 2 to 3 beds. We're looking for 2 to 3 beds. And now, by offering that to him, the figures work for him. So now he's got a whole vast range of houses that he can source that didn't work for his clients before. So it gives the sourcing agent another string to your bow, if you like, of being able to sell social housing on the deal as another option to private rental. So I'll if you want a copy of this housing brochure, I can send it across to you afterwards. That's absolutely fine. And then you can read it at your leisure. But what I will do is just kind of run through this and get sort of to the nitty gritty. So the main thing when we were talking to landlords, it was maybe that they were retiring, or they were going to retire because they were fed up with private rental. They were fed up of private tenants trashing the place, of private tenants not paying the rent, or having a void in between two tenants that they were struggling to fill, not because that there's not a demand for private rental, but that they were having to do repairs and make it lettable again. So they were getting no income. So that was when we said, well, you keep your asset, you don't need to sell it, but we can give you this passive income. You've got a lease for 3 to 5 years, and basically it's guaranteed rent. So it's effectively the government pays the council pay the housing association, and the housing association pay the landlord through us. So because it's government backed, you are getting paid month in and month out. And the other thing that they do is that they cover damage to the property. They cover leaky taps, or anything that is a normal maintenance issue, then they cover it. Now, the only thing that they don't cover is the boiler. So we always advise landlords to get, like a British gas cover where you can just call them out quickly. Other covers are available, but for £7 a month or whatever it works out at, it's the easiest thing to do. And the other thing that they don't cover is the structure of the building. So if you get a slip slate, or you've got a problem with the gutters, something like that, then the landlord still has to cover that. But pretty much everything else, they pick up. So you haven't got the hassle of having to deal with ongoing maintenance either. So let me just come down here. So the kind of houses that we're looking for, so this will apply to you as a sourcing agent or to a landlord. So we're looking for mainly 2 and 3 bed houses. We do some 4-bed houses, predominantly Leeds, Bradford and Wakefield. At the time we wrote this, we thought Kirklees would sign, sealed and delivered, but they proved more difficult to deal with than we thought. So Kirklees is still in discussion, but we're hoping that Kirklees will come on board quite soon. These are the councils as opposed to the areas. So for instance, you've got Dewsbury is a WF postcode, but it actually comes under, comes under Huddersfield, Kirklees. Now, it also goes out as far as like Castleford, Ponty, South Emsall. So it'll go Donny way quite a long way. So firstly, like I said, the advantage really is financial, because you've got no voids, you've got no arrears and non-payment, that sort of thing. You get that amount every month. All you have to do is check your bank. I've talked about the maintenance, and you haven't got any letting agents fees to pay. So when we've always worked out our figures when we're buying a property, we've always allowed 10% for management fees, which is probably a bit light now, excuse me, and 10% for maintenance. So we've always got that pot in case anything goes wrong. If you think that's 20% of the rent that you're not getting as cash flow, and that's 20% more cash flow that you're getting on social housing. The other thing is time. So, you're not worried about having to go out and fix things, because if a landlord doesn't pay a letting agent, then they're the ones who are having to go and get the rent. They're the ones who are having to go and fix things. And it's just a pain, to be honest. So none of that is anything that they have to worry about. And I suppose the last thing is, it's just that feel-good factor, that you're giving something back. that you're actually helping a community that is desperately in need, because these people have fallen on hard times. They're not necessarily ex-convicts or alcoholics or drug abusers. They could just be a normal family that has fallen on hard times because the main earner has lost their job and now they can't afford the mortgage and they don't know where to turn. So it can be something as simple as that. It can be domestic abuse victims, people with learning difficulties. There's a whole raft of people that it can be. So, like I said, property type, it can be any 2 to 4 bed property. I know here I've put in one bed houses and flats. At the time I wrote this originally, they were taking them, but now they're not taking those. So it is 2, 3, 4 bed houses. You can sometimes get away with a 2, 3 bed flat, depending what it is and where it is. So I would always say, if you find something that meets that criteria, bob me the postcode. And I always get the postcode checked. And we get a yes or no on that postcode pretty much straight away. We were doing all postcodes anywhere up to recently. Recently, they've now said they don't want anywhere in LS11. So LS11 is, I think it's part of Beeston.
I don't want LS11.
Yeah. So it's just LS11. If it's an LS11 postcode, they've stopped taking that. But
you know why that is, Jackie?
I don't know the in-depth reason, but from what I hear on the grapevine, they've had problems in the drug dealers on the street, prostitutes, that sort of thing, and therefore they don't want to pick vulnerable people in those areas. So because we're housing families, not individuals, it's all single family lets. So obviously they want to be careful that the areas that they're putting people in are suitable for families to feel safe in. So yeah. And we don't do HMOs. So we don't do HMOs on a private rental or a social housing level, largely because in Keighley, I don't think any letting agents touch HMOs here, but it's a choice that we made, but also the housing association that we work with don't touch HMOs. Other housing associations will. People like Mears and Serco will take HMOs, but I don't deal with them, so I don't really know at what level. This is more about the ones that we deal with and how we can then provide you with an opportunity to offer social housing to your sourcing clients. So the properties need to be of a good standard. We will advise what that standard is, and I'll show you the criteria in a bit. These are ones that we've done. So this, if you can see my cursor, this was a kitchen. I think the kitchen was pretty much in. We just titivated it, made sure it was compliant, that the cupboards were all good quality, all the doors open properly, that sort of thing. You've got the oven in there. So decent house. This one, we've decorated it. So again, it's just basic decor, you know, clean white walls, grey carpet. It doesn't have to be, pick your own colour. But also don't forget that if you're doing up a refurb, you're selling it to the bank as well if you're going to refinance. So just bear that in mind. And again, decent quality bathroom. There is a shower in this bath at the other end. So yeah, so it's just that kind of standard. No gold taps, just good, safe, warm, comfortable homes. So this was an example of what we did private rental against social housing. So the private rental, we were getting a bit more, but the extra costs that you had with agency fees and all the things that agents quite often charge for, like if you've got voids, if they're referencing, see now they can't charge the tenant, they're charging the landlord, inventories, all that sort of thing. Gas safe, EICR, EPCs, all of that. Now, not all of those costs are applicable every year. So, you know, there's a bit of leeway. But if you actually look at the difference, you know, on the landlord costs on the social housing, once you provide these documents at handover stage, the housing association pick up paying for them. They do the gas safe every year. If the EICR falls within the lease period, they do that. If the EPC falls within the lease period, they do that. So really, you have very, very little deductions against your rent other than your mortgage. So I've not included the mortgage on either of these because, again, I mean, everybody gets different mortgage rates, etc. But if you just look at the general income on private rental compared to what you can get on social housing, for little input from yourself in terms of time, then there is a lot of opportunity there. So there are some additional costs to get into social housing, which you won't have on private rental. So these are the rents that you would get. Now, Kirklees, ignore that for now because that needs to be confirmed. But these are the rents that you get. Ignore that 1 bed on Bradford because they don't want it anymore. So 2 beds, you're looking at 500, and it don't matter where it is in Bradford. It might be BD1, it might be BD10, it might be BD20. So you need to make sure that the postcodes that rent works.
Yeah.
So for us, that rent works really well in most of Bradford and Keighley. It doesn't work in BD16, which is Bingley, because the house prices are that much more. Same will go for Leeds. You know, you're getting a 2-bed property, it's 700 quid. It works in LS12, it works in LS9, it works in LS5. It ain't going to work in LS17. So you just got to know your areas and where it will work. But these are the rents that are paid. The additional costs to get in. So the survey is not the RIC survey. This is a survey by the Housing Association and ourselves to visit the property, look at what's needed at the property, advise the landlord or yourselves as sourcing agents as to what work is required to make it compliant for social housing. And then there's an admin charge for setting up the lease. So add these two together, you've got 995, and then there's a furniture cost. So you have to supply the property furnished. So we'll supply the furniture packs. So again, it's these prices, don't matter what your postcode is, these prices, 2 bed, 3 bed, 4 bed, and there is VAT on top of all of these costs. At one time, in the furniture cost, there's also a microwave supplied. We used to also supply the fridge freezer and the washer dryer, but trying to link up with the agent or the landlord for an AO delivery or wherever it was coming from, it's just a nightmare. So the landlord or sourcing agent, if the sourcing agent is doing a refurb, then it's far easier for the sourcing agent to sort out appliances and the delivery of them, getting them fitted, than it is for us to do it sort of one step removed. So we took them out of our costs and just asked that the landlord provides them. So you would provide an oven and hob, an extractor fan normally anyway. It doesn't have to be fitted. You can have a standalone cooker, that's fine. We nearly always do electric. We try and keep the smallest amount of gas in a property as possible. So we will have the gas boiler, but everything else, we literally try and take out gas fires, gas cookers. Now, if there's one in there and it all looks fine, leave it. But the gas fires, we normally do get them decommissioned. So, okay. And then when we're working with sourcing agents, so this just shows the responsibilities. So out of those fees that I showed you before, the sourcing agent, on top of whatever you've charged the client for your sourcing deal, your sourcing fee, We'll give you 250 out of that setup fee for your time and linking us up. And then we'll also give you £25 per month out of the rental payment. So you get like an ongoing bonus, if you like, commission for setting up that social housing. Okay. Rent is always paid in arrears. So it's paid on the first of the month. The first month's payment might then be, if you've handed it over on like the 16th of September, the first month's payment is probably going to be the 1st of November. So there'll be like a 6-week payment, and then it's paid monthly on the 1st thereafter. So this is what we ask for the sourcing agent and how they link up with the investor. So the investor needs to confirm that they want a social housing contract, and they need to pay those additional fees. See, the setup fee, the furniture fee, we would normally invoice the sourcing agent, and you get that money from the client and pass it forward. But you need to invoice them for the increased refurb costs. So it's things like you need to have fire doors on risk rooms like kitchens and lounges. You need to have an escape window on the first floor. Everything, the thumb turn locks on the external doors, thumb turn locks on the bathroom. So it's things like that that probably over and above what you would do for private rental. So we then assess and confirm the suitability of the property and the location. We sort out the furniture because we know what the housing association need. So we'll organise all that, get it ordered, get it delivered in liaison with yourselves as to what date works. We get all the documentation together. So we work with you to get the whatever documents are in place at handover. Get the lease issued. We then pay the rent to the investor, and we sit then between the housing association and the landlord if there's any queries going forward. As a sourcing agent, then it's up to you to cost up and execute that refurb to meet the specification. To work with the investor to collect all the relevant amounts of money and ensure that the property is correctly insured. So quite often when they're insuring a property, they just need to say what the tenant profile is. Now, some insurers will not like it if it's ex-convicts, but we're not putting ex-convicts in. So they're just regular families that are going in, but they're supported via the housing association rather than being a directly paying DSS tenant. You also just need to make sure that all the certificates are available and provided across to us. There needs to be a £20 credit on the meters. So if you've got a key card or one of those things that you stick in the meter, they need to have a credit of at least £10 on gas, £10 on electric, so that the tenant can get started. Okay. We always ask you to put a key safe on the property. So a key would be left in the key safe, and then you would hand over 3 sets of keys for the property. So that's a set for the tenant, a set for the housing association, a set for us, and then the one in the key safe is there kind of as an emergency in case contractors have to go out quickly. If you want to keep a spare set on behalf of an investor, that's up to you. I guess it depends where the investor is. If your investor's based in Hong Kong, then you may choose to do so. If the investor's also based in Leeds, you may not bother. So that gives sort of an introduction, if you like, into how it works. Let me just try and share my screen again so I can just show you the criteria. Oh, I just went past it there. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that okay? So this is the refurbishment criteria that we work to. So it's quite clear as to what's required. You know, we literally, it's spelled out. A lot of things are the same as you do for private rental anyway. You know, you would have a fire blanket in a kitchen for private rental. You would be putting in a carbon monoxide detector because you now need it for letting rules. all of those things really are adhering to general housing regulations, but in some instances they're just going one step further, like the fire doors on the bedrooms, on the lounge and the kitchen, etc. Okay, so all of those things, we will provide you with that list so you can check off against it. And then it's really a case of working with the investor as to whether that deal works for them as social housing, and if you want to hand it over. So I'm just going to come out of that and stop sharing. There we go. Hello, everybody.
Thank you, Jackie.
See you all big now.
That's interesting.
So has anybody got any questions?
Yeah, I think I have. Sorry, I missed the first 10 minutes of the presentation.
It was just a bit of an introduction into how we got into it, really. So I don't think you missed anything vital.
Okay, right. So if we've got a property that is suitable for one of the housing associations, who takes responsibility for the right to rent of the actual occupiers?
The housing association.
Right, okay.
So we never really have anything to do with the tenants themselves.
Got you.
So the housing association, they work with the council. So for like with us in Bradford, the ones we used to worked with emergency housing, and that was a nightmare. I mean, you had all sorts of people in, and people who were playing the game as tenants do. Now the ones that we work with like adult services or children's services, whatever. So they are speaking to the relevant council department about who they should be putting in that property, who it's suitable for, who is in the most need, and they are responsible for housing that tenant. Our responsibility is covered by effectively a company lease. So it is at company lease level, not at AST level.
Right, got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Jackie.
I'm okay.
Yes. So you did mention that the lease is initially for 3 years.
3 or 5 years.
3 or 5 years. So after that, if you are to extend, does that mean you need to go over the process all over again?
Yes, but you don't need all those upfront costs again.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So there will just be a small fee for renewal, but you're not doing all the survey again. You're not doing all the
finishing costs,
all of that sort of thing. So the renewal cost would be very minimal. It's about 250 quid.
Thank you.
Okay. You can have, the reason it's 3 or 5 years is that the general lease is 5 years. And the reason they offer 3 is one of our early properties that we went, because we buy with cash, refurb, and then put a mortgage on, the lenders didn't like it being a 5-year contract. They wanted a 3-year contract. Don't start me with lenders and social housing in terms of why is it more vulnerable or more risky to have a 5-year guaranteed rental payment lease than it is to have an AST with somebody who might decide they're not paying anymore. But anyway, that's mortgage lenders for you.
You can never predict.
Don't you just love them?
You can never predict their actions. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, so has anybody got any other questions? I'm quite happy to send that brochure out to everybody.
That'd be wonderful. That's
got-
going to be my question.
Right, no, I'm happy to send the brochure. I'm happy to send the refurb spec out.
Yes,
I know I've got
please.
Jonathan's email. I know I've got Jason's email. I've got Ruki's. I've got Camilla's. Bina, I'm not sure if I've got your email.
Yeah, I'll message you. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to pick that across on a message, that's fine.
Can I just
get
ask
them out.
very quickly,
Yeah.
are there any postcodes in Bradford that they don't want as well, or is it okay for?
Not come across any yet.
Right, okay.
So at the moment, everything that I've put to them, they've said, yes, that's okay. So what I always do before I say, yes, go ahead with the property, I just say, give me the full postcode and ideally the house number as well, because then it sort of just helps them establish that whereabouts the house is.
Yeah.
I give them the postcode, say, are you happy with this? It's a 3-bed, it's a 2-bed, whatever. And they normally come back pretty much within a couple of hours. If it's the end of the day, it might be the following day, but they're pretty hot on coming back to us with, yeah, that works. We've got a demand there. Yeah. I think the only one that's been a bit more awkward, apart from LS11, we've been doing, I think it's WF9, which
All
is
right.
South Emsall.
Hemsall, yeah, Hemsworth, and yes,
Yeah.
South Kirby, yeah.
Yeah, and there's been a couple of streets that they are less keen on.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Harrow something. Harrow Road. Was it Harrow Road?
I know the main Kirby Road, because
Yeah.
I've got a few houses on there that we manage, so I think it might be not too far from there.
Yeah, yeah. But having said that, they were a bit like, but they've agreed to take them because they still have got need. They just had to double check. And I think I had about 6 come in one go. And they were like,
right.
can we stagger these? And to be honest, it was my misunderstanding. So I thought they were all coming in one go, but they weren't. They were staggered over about 2 or 3 months. So that was fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so just a case of putting it across to you and see what they're saying, then just, yeah, if they don't want it, they don't want it. Yeah.
And, you know, we're not asking anybody to sign up to us and it's like an exclusivity as a sourcing agent or whatever. It is literally, this is what we do. If you've got a property or a landlord or a client where that works and you want to offer that to them, happy days, let's all work together. But if it doesn't, then that's fine too.
Can I ask, please? So it's basically a rent-to-rent basis for the investor. So they have a property and they rent it to you, and you rent it to the housing association, or they rent it to the housing association straight away?
So the lease is with us.
How does it work?
The lease is with us, and we so it is kind of a rent to rent, but it's
yeah.
I suppose it is rent to rent of a sorts, but the housing association also work closely with us in making sure that everything's right with the property. So
so you basically lease it of them.
Yeah.
You lease it of them once the refurb and everything is done and it's signed off for social housing.
Correct. Yeah. So
who does this sign off and approval?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not rent to rent in that we would go and take a property and just the landlord has nothing to do with it anymore. So, you know, like some rent to rent, you do negotiate with the landlord that you'll pay them a rent and then you'll take it over and you'll do whatever work needs to be done and such like. So we won't do that, but we will advise as to what needs to be done so it's in a compliance state to be handed over. And then we'll sit in the middle. So the lease is with us, and then we have exactly the same lease with the housing association. The other good thing about the lease as well is that they have a 3-month break clause. So at any point, if the landlord wants to sell the property or wants to get out of the housing lease, they can give 3 months notice. And that actually helps with lending, with getting a mortgage. So I think Mia's were doing it. I don't know if they've changed it now, but Mia's were doing it, and they didn't have a break clause, and that meant it was much harder to get lending against the contract. So this is a 3-month break clause. I mean, equally, the housing association can give 3 months notice, but in reality, they're desperate for houses. The demand is so huge. They're not giving any kind of break clause on anything. So it's only really if the houses, if you want to sell the property or decide that you've had enough of social housing. But why would you? Because you've got nothing to do. You're just going, yeah, I've got the money.
So if they decide to go ahead, basically first there come somebody from housing association, or just you to tell them what to do in terms of refurb?
We usually come, it's usually us. So we will come and visit the property. We will go through the property with that refurb criteria. And, you know, we'll leave that with you. With them, it says, right, you need another socket in here. You need to put a fire door on here, whatever it is. Or if it's all compliant, happy days. Let's get it tenanted quickly. And literally, we can get it tenanted pretty much within a week. So
yeah. And then who comes to approve it's compliant?
So the final,
is it also you or somebody from
the housing association will come and do the final sign off? Because what they normally do is do the final sign off and move the tenant in straight away. So we might come in between.
Okay, they come with the tenant.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I've been there doing sign over, and they're like, the tenant's there. I mean, we don't often see the tenants, but sometimes it's there. And like, I mean, we did one, and bless her, this young girl, she was in some dreadful place in Bradford, and she just wanted to get out there, and the blinds hadn't been put up at that point. And I'm like, well, we need to get the blinds put up. She's like, I don't care, I'll move in now, we'll manage without the blinds, it's fine. She looks about 12, but that's probably because I'm old. And she had the cutest little kid, and it's like, oh, I need to take this kid a teddy. I need to go back and take this kid a teddy. She was so sweet. So but yeah, I mean, they want to get people in. So it may be come and check, and something needs to be done after the tenant's moved in. As long as it's something small, then you know, we can do it after the tenant's moved in.
Yeah.
What is it like?
And does the
tenants like to deal with?
Second.
You know, sorry, was the two people talking? Because if not, I'll go second.
Well, Camilla was just finishing off on something.
Sorry, I'll let you finish off. Sorry, that was really rude.
No, it wasn't. It's just everybody started talking.
No, we both. I just wanted to ask last thing, if the landlord or the investor knows who is the housing association on the contract.
Not normally, because setting up with housing associations is so hard. This is probably the bit you missed at the beginning. I was saying actually getting in with the housing associations is really, really hard. So most people who kind of sit in the middle don't disclose who the housing association is. But if there's any breach of that contract, it's us that's in breach. So you would take it up with us.
Who's your contract with? So your contract is with the housing association, but on the other side, is it with the landlord?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So, but they've got all exactly the same clauses in. Everything's the same. They've got the same break clause. They've got the same rules, regulations.
Why is it so difficult you said it's really difficult to get into housing associations. What's difficult?
They're just trying to connect with people. They're just really careful about who they work with.
Yeah.
Really, it's a bit like getting the gatekeepers. It's getting past them is really tough.
Yeah, so, they must have had some really bad experiences with people in the past.
Yeah, I think they have. They have. So yeah. So, can I just take one more question, if that's all right? If I can just take Jonathan's question, and then I will send the information out to you. Bina, if you let me have your email, I'll send it to yourself as well. And then once you've read it all, if you've then got any questions after that, please get in contact and we can clarify a bit further. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. Jonathan, your last question.
Yeah, my question was, is your tenant journey, how are you finding them when they're in the property? Are they looking after it? Is it what kind of bumps in the road are there? Because I imagine when they're very few and far between, but when they happen, they're quite big, I would have thought.
So for us, because I said at the beginning that we've handed all of our properties over bar two. And the two we haven't handed over is one, we've just got one that the tenant's been in for like forever and then moved out. If they move out, we'll hand it over.
Yeah.
And the other one's in Bingley, so it don't really work. So I would say we've only had one issue, and that was just the family that they moved in were just really noisy. And then the housing association spoke to the council and they were moved on. So in terms of any damage to the property, because I think they damaged the property a bit, the housing association have just repaired it all. So at the end of your lease, when they hand it back, they are obliged to put it back to the condition in which you handed it over. Less fair wear and tear. I mean, if you've got a private tenant in a house for 5 years, your carpet's probably going to need a good clean at the end of it. So, you know, but whenever we had to have properties back from the previous housing association, and they've done all the work to put them back straight. So
for like.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they've painted them, freshened them up. Sometimes they put new carpets back in. So they've repaired anything that needed repairing. So yeah, so they've handed them back in good condition. Does that help? Cool. Good. Do you mind if I just take a quick picture of everybody, if that's okay?
Yeah, I've just got to ask if I can do the same.
Rookie, are you there?
Oh, she's disappeared.
She's disappeared. Well, we'll just have a thing. So if we could all just have a quick picture, that would be amazing. Thank you very much. You've got to do everything on social media these days, haven't you? Oh, she's there. She's there. Look.
I'm really sorry. I'm just trying to pick kids up from after school club. So I'm driving. That's why it's so dark.
It's fine. I only wanted a picture of you.
I'll send you one. I took one earlier, I think.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Listen, guys, thank you so much for jumping on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any questions, shout, and I'm happy to answer them. I will get those brochures out after I've had my tea, because Steve keeps going, how long are you going to be? How long are you going to be?
So, Jackie, I'll be in touch regarding the one we were discussing earlier.
Yes, do.
When will be best for you?
Just drop me an email, Rookie, and then I'll have a look at the diary.
All right. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. Lovely to speak to you all, guys. Enjoy the rest of
thank
your
you.
evening, and hopefully we can do some stuff together.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Evening,
you.
thanks.
It's been
Thank
lovely.
you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
See you
now.
later.
Bye.